By now we are well versed with what functional groups are and how they affect the properties of our hydrocarbons. Now the next important thing in our list is to name the carbon compounds that have functional groups attached to it. Why do we need to learn this? We have already learned how hydrocarbons are named in our previous videos. We have studied the nomenclature of alkanes, alkenes and alkynes. Maybe we just have to add the name of the functional group that is attached to it, right? No, it's not that simple. How will we write the name of the element? The functional group first or the hydrocarbon first? And what if two functional groups are attached to the hydrocarbon chain? Well, there are many factors that can influence the naming of our hydrocarbons. So how do we name them appropriately? This is where the IUPAC comes to our rescue. It's the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. The body is known for setting up rules in chemistry. Laying the rules for scientific nomenclature of elements and compounds is also something they do. Let's have a look at a few points to keep in mind for understanding the nomenclature system. Similar to naming the hydrocarbons, here too we name the compound in two parts, the prefix and the suffix. The prefix is usually decided by the parent hydrocarbon. And what is the parent hydrocarbon? Parent hydrocarbon is the principal chain of hydrocarbon that has the respective functional group attached to it. So if the hydrocarbon A is attached to the functional group B, then A becomes the parent hydrocarbon. Now what will the suffix be? Yes, the suffix has to be the name of the functional group attached to it. So for naming the compound, there are a few things that we need to remember. The first thing we look for in the compound is the chain with highest number of carbon atoms. The parent chain of hydrocarbon will be the one with maximum number of carbon atoms in series. What do we mean by this? Say we have a 10 carbon long chain with no branching. Such a chain will be our parent chain. Now what if the chain of 10 carbon atoms comes in the form of branches like this? Here can we say that the principal chain is 10 carbon long? If you keenly observe, the longest chain having carbon in a straight line or series has 8 carbon atoms. Yes, this chain has 8 and this one has 7. We consider the longer one. That is why this compound, in spite of having total 10 carbon atoms, will have the parent chain of 8 carbon atoms only. What about the remaining 2 carbon atoms? The remaining 2 carbon atoms will be considered as side chains. That is what we look for in the beginning while naming the compound. It helps us decide the prefix as it depends on the number of carbon atoms in the parent hydrocarbon. Now what should we do next? After the prefix, it's time for us to look for the suffix. Here, the suffix is decided by the functional group attached to the parent chain. Yes, the parent hydrocarbon decides the prefix and the functional group decides the suffix. Just like we had ane, ene and ine for alkanes, alkenes and alkynes, the endings of the functional group are added accordingly. So if we have an alkane and the functional group attached is alcohol, then we replace the E with the OL in its name. The alkane ethane will become ethanol. For the suffix, do we always take the last 2 letters of the functional group? Not necessarily. Here is a table that gives us an idea as to how the suffixes can be added for various functional groups. So we have all for alcohol, al for aldehyde, one for ketone and oic acid for carboxylic acid. But notice the case of halides. It's slightly different. Naming the compounds with halides comes in 2 ways. One system is haloalkane, where the halogen is named as the prefix and the alkane name appears as the suffix. Thus, we add the prefix chloro, bromo, fluoro and iodo respectively before the parent hydrocarbon. So if we have chlorine attached to the methyl group, we say chloromethane. The other style of naming the compounds is called the alkyl halide style. In this, the alkyl name is written first, followed by the terms fluoride, chloride, bromide and iodide. So the chloromethane can also be referred to as methyl chloride. There are many other rules as well, like in the case of compounds with 2 or more functional groups. But we will learn about these complex compounds in our higher grades. So for now, we learn the nomenclature system keeping in mind these basic rules. Let us understand how we name the various compounds using these basic rules along with a few examples in the upcoming videos.